Anybody on?
Joe is on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I am.
Hi, Paul.
I'm here too.
Hello, Carl.
How's a man of your stature and wealth of knowledge doing tonight?
So do I hit share now or I don't till later?
Usually you kind of wait until you get, a handful or two of people on.
Okay. So are you the one leading the meeting, Joseph, or?
No, I'm not. I'm just a eager participant to hear what everybody has to say.
Oh, okay, okay. You should have been up on the shore today. Waves, it's southwest wind and just huge waves coming in. I was photographing the waves coming over the lighthouse this afternoon, so.
Yeah, I always loved the North Shore. It's a beautiful place. I live in Wisconsin, not too far from the Twin Cities, about 40 miles east of the Twin Cities in River Falls.
Oh,
But
okay.
I like to get up to the North Shore once a year. When the kids were younger, we'd go up there for a week or two in the winter because they like to ski. And I
Okay.
don't ski, so they'd ski and I'd get my camera and I'd just go out and take pictures of beautiful things.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to do lots of skiing when I was younger, but it's tougher as you get older and have knee replacements and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
that Gunfight Lodge, I just saw that they've got about a 7 kilometer loop plowed on the lake of just beautiful black ice. That would be just people are just going up there and skating right now. So
Uh, yeah, well, I can take the cold, but the snow gets a little hard when you get older, driving around
right,
in it, walking around in it. Yeah.
right.
I see Steve joined. I think Steve is the coordinator MC. He's
That's
the
me.
he's the
I'm
man.
I'm the big president. Um, Thank you, Paul Sundberg, for joining us. Wait some minutes to get the
Yeah,
others
well,
to join.
thanks for inviting me. It's I always like sharing my pictures.
Mhm. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. Looking forward to this.
No, where do you live? In Wisconsin also?
I'm a eastern suburb of the Twin Cities guy. They let me
Oh, okay.
join anyway, despite being a Minnesota guy.
Okay.
There are a lot of us Minnesotans, actually.
Oh, so I imagine you get up the North Shore quite a bit too then.
Yeah, since the early 70s, been up there
Oh,
with
okay.
with my cameras and Obviously starting with film as you did and as we all did.
Yeah, I used to go through a lot of film. So I don't do too many Zoom meetings, so this is the only second one I've been doing. So when it gets ready, then I just have to hit that share button and then you allow it and then the program can start.
Yeah, so I will give you control of the meeting and then you can do the share and um for me, I always close down as many apps as possible so it's easier to find what I want to share when I get there.
I think Charlie is a guest here tonight, right?
Yes, I am. I don't usually show up for these, but I am a member.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I'm just a wannabe photographer.
That describes all of us, I think.
Well, you would have enjoyed the North Shore this afternoon if you'd have been up here to take pictures. The southwest wind was putting some giant waves in on the lighthouse. So
Mm.
the way I spent the afternoon was photographing huge waves.
I spent the afternoon driving school bus in the snow.
Getting them from unstuck, you mean?
No, just navigating through the storm on the
I guess
road.
I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even know you guys had a storm going on.
Yeah, we had some not a lot of snow, but we had some snow this afternoon.
Okay.
Maybe just a dusting.
We are wimps. We get excited about a dusting. So Paul, I will start with some announcements and then I'll introduce you and then it's your show.
Okay. Did you want questions during the program or afterwards? Which would you prefer?
Oh, good question. It's more a question for you, I suppose. What would you
Yeah,
prefer?
it doesn't matter to me. The program, if I just run through it, runs about 40 minutes.
Mhm.
Just me talking. If depending on how many questions, then I'll go that much longer. Um,
You know,
so-
Paul, I think when we did this Friday night, that we talked about that and we thought that maybe if somebody had a question, they should ask it right away because it might be about a particular photo. And then you wouldn't have to backtrack to find that to answer a question.
Sounds good.
Yep, that works for me. So you could just announce that to everybody then if you want.
Mhm.
How many people you have on?
Uh, it varies from week to week. Currently, we have 7. We'll probably get at least 15. Um, give or take, that's typical.
My computer says 15 right now.
Oh, you're right. We're already there. I was looking in the wrong place. So I think what I'm going to do is start to share with my announcements. Do you see a PowerPoint with Western photography?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So a couple of changes. Well, a few changes that the board made in the last months of 2024. For a long time, or at least as long as I've been a member, the assignment category was the every 2 month assignment, but we're going to change that to topic just to simplify things. And altered reality was always described as creative parenthesis altered reality. And I guess, again, to simplify, we're just going to call it altered reality since that's what it's about. And we're adding two categories that N4C has, black and white and travel. And the rest will stay the same.
Steve, I have a question. This is
Yeah.
Joe. What about Prince? Have we abandoned Prince as a club? now?
Good question. Maybe the simple answer is yes, but the longer answer is, well, I'll expand on the simple answer. We've gotten very few prints in recent years, so it's never really a competition for prints. So we've removed it for now. There was discussion about possibly having a once a year print competition, probably towards the end of the year that people could prepare for. So glad you asked that. Last time we met, I mentioned that I'm stepping down as president of the club at the end of March and looking for a replacement. You got a summary of the duties, and clearly I'll help whoever takes on the role to train them in or give them support to help them whatever's needed. We also have some changes with the N4C coordinator. Ken Wolter is taking over for Terry.
In September.
He did in September.
He will in this coming September.
Oh, I missed that.
I'm going to finish out the N4C year.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Terry has taken over. Someone needs to mute. Someone needs to mute. Who's Who is this? Who is this? Somebody is on the meeting that shouldn't be on the meeting. Who is that?
Terry, did you say Chuck was going to join?
Yeah, I thought he was.
From the library? Well, I'll continue. So upcoming competitions, we have the year-end award on January 22nd. That takes the accepted entries from the 6 salons in 2024, and a judge will decide what the best images are. And the next salon is February 5, and the deadline for submitting images is today. So Ken's not taking over yet, but anyway, the deadline for February for N4C is February 10th is always the deadline of each month. And upcoming programs, Christy Williams and Terry put this together. John Benoyer is going to talk about winter photography on February 19th, March 5, wildflower photography by Marianne Sir. And then Terry is going to present on black and white photography in March. Last topic is spring break. Terry, you want to talk about this at all?
Yeah, it's pretty, all the planning has been done. We just need to get the registration taken care of. Gene Schwalpe is working on that. He had problems with PayPal, and I think he connected with Brian Leonard because Brian Leonard seems to be pretty good at that. And I haven't heard back from Gene for a while, whether he was able to get that figured out. So I'm going to be sending out emails to everybody who has ever attended a spring break in the past, giving them information about what that day is going to be like. We've got a wonderful speaker, Tony Sweet, who is a Nikon legend. He's published, worldwide, and he's with Getty Images, and he's going to give great presentations in person all day. We're also going to have some shooting opportunities. Dave Johnson from National Camera is going to set up a portrait studio. We're going to have Raptors from the University of Minnesota. We're paying to have a bald eagle there, and this will be outdoors during the lunch hour. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a setup for macro photography using where you can borrow Tamron lenses from one of the vendors that'll be there. So it's going to be a really great event. We didn't have one last year, but we are this year, and we're kind of hoping we'll get a lot of people wanting to go there. And the Camera Council now has more social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram with the help of a lady who is a friend of member of the St. Croix Valley Camera Club. So, and then soon, at about the same time, our club is responsible for getting the digital portion of the interclub competition judged. And I'm trying to figure out whether we're going to get in-person judges. I need 3 of them. Or maybe I'm going to contact some of the N4C clubs to see if they could judge them. So kind of a busy time of year coming up for everybody, but me especially. But it's all fun.
Yeah, great. Okay. Thank you, Terry. That's looking
Yeah, and
forward to that.
I think the secretary of the council is going to be sending emails to club reps and club presidents fairly soon to get the word out about spring break and the interclub competition. And I really urge every member of our club to enter images for the interclub competition. It's one of the benefits of our club belonging to the Camera Council.
Okay. Let's move along to our presenter. I'm going to do a different share to introduce. So can you see Paul's website? What's going on here?
Yep.
There's a shot. So Paul has a nice about section. There he is. Paul grew up in McGregor, Minnesota, started taking pictures in the early 70s. He and his wife Carla moved to the North Shore in '76 and managed Cascade River State Park. They've moved to Gooseberry Falls area in '83, where he managed that. Retired in 2010 after 40 years. He and his wife are now living in Grand Marais. And I've been following Paul for a lot of years with the photo of the week. The most recent one is about owls and wonderful pictures. Are you able to see the
Yep.
owls?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's going on right now on the shore. We've got the owl eruption taking place. There's quite a few.
wow, that's a shot. So anyway, take a look at his website and you'll see some wonderful stuff. Uh, Not just owls, lots of stuff. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to make Paul in charge.
So
Expand.
let me know when I should hit share.
Yep. Okay, I just made you the host. So you
Go
could,
ahead and hit share.
yep. And it'll ask you to pick what screen you want. Or,
Imagine entire screen, right?
Yeah, you were going to zoom your program up to fill the whole screen, right?
Yeah, so just hit that blue square on the left then.
Why don't you try it?
I'll just hit share here.
Okay,
you succeeded. We see a
perfect.
It's working.
beautiful
Yep.
scene.
Okay, can I close this Zoom workplace screen then?
No,
Mm-mm.
Oh,
nope.
that still needs to be there. Okay.
Yep.
It
Okay.
can be in the background.
Okay. I gotta move this to get to my button here. Okay. Everybody see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So
Success.
then I'll just mention if anybody does have questions as we go through, just feel free to ask, and then we'll kind of have some more questions at the end if we want here. Um, so I'll just start going through. So I really do feel fortunate to live on the North Shore because it gives you so many opportunities for photography. Um, I love watching Lake Superior with the waves. Like I mentioned earlier, the waves are coming in today, and this wave watching was just excellent this afternoon. This shot is from Crystal Bay in Tetagooch State Park, and that particular point is just a really nice spot to photograph waves because the waves, the wind is coming across probably 200 miles of open Lake Superior there, and then it just collides right with that point, just happens to stick out. And you can get beautiful, beautiful waves coming into that spot. Grand Marais, just any place around Grand Marais, whether you try to get it right by the lighthouse or go further up the shore like I did here, and then just shooting down the shore, getting the lighthouse in the background and the Sawtooth Mountains. That's another spot. Of course, you always got to worry about sprays, so there's some spots there where you can kind of get behind the rocks, and it kind of splits the spray, so you don't get all your camera all wet, and still be able to shoot some nice big waves. This just the day that there were just huge waves coming in, hitting the Grand Marais Lighthouse. There was lots of photographers in the Coast Guard parking lot that day. Just many of them taking pictures. It had been a storm that had been going on all day long. And this is probably the largest wave that I've photographed hitting the lighthouse. This is from the opposite side of the harbor than the other one was there. And
On the previous one, Paul, what kind of a lens were you using? What was the focal length?
that one I was using my Tamron. So I probably wasn't full power in there, so it was probably the Tamron goes up to 600, so it was probably around a 400 maybe. Right in on that one.
So you weren't real close.
No, as a matter of fact, I was back at the harbor, the parking lot, shooting out of the window of the vehicle and still getting wet. Yeah, you wouldn't, that day you could not get close to the shore. Even that prior picture, that I showed you, shoreline there, you couldn't have got to that spot either. You would have got just drenched. And then this one from the other side is probably full power on that Tamron. This one I shot a few years ago. But I don't know if you ever heard commercial fishermen always call the biggest waves the Three Sisters. They come in and about, I don't know, whenever I'm photographing waves anyhow, it's if you can wane it out and spend the time watching, about every 30, 40th wave, there'll be a series of bigger ones that come in. And they usually come in a series of three. And that's what the commercial fishermen call the Three Sisters, which is the most dangerous for being out on the lake. And this was the last of the Three Sisters that hit the lighthouse that day. I was down there for about 2 hours probably, and this was the largest wave during that 2 hour period of time. And I was fortunate to be able to be looking at the right time. This is back down to Crystal Bay again in Tennagooch, and this one just has so many faces in it, and it's just such a unique picture. You can see towards the cliff, there's a couple of real distinct faces. I when I for about 6 years I taught fourth graders at Silver Bay or elementary school photo workshop, and the kids just love this picture, and they actually counted 8 faces that they found in this picture, but you have to use a little imagination on that one. This is one of the storms coming into Grand Marais again. It was evening, the sun was just setting there, and the sky was aglow. This guy is from Duluth that's on that board. He moved here from California, and every time there's a storm that he can surf, he's out there doing it till dark. And I talked to him a couple of times, and he said, "Yeah, sometimes it's pretty hairy. If he gets too close to those cliffs, he's done for. So he has to work his way towards the beach every time. But he's got enough talent to be able to do it, anyhow. And then, of course, if temperature drops, boy, that spray just freezes to the trees just all the way around the shoreline. And boy, it is so nice to walk into that enchanted forest after the spray gets in there, and you can see all kinds of designs in there. On that upper right, it almost looks like a person was standing there covered with ice. It's just amazing, and that spray freezes. Even all the smaller twigs make for great photos. Again, this is in the harbor in Grand Marais, and it's just all of the branches got covered right in that certain spot with the waves. And then a lot of time the lake will freeze, but the ice usually doesn't last long. I mean, there's a couple of years that 90% of Lake Superior was froze over, but a lot of times it'll freeze, and then that wind will come up and it'll just pile the ice up on shore, and it's just amazing to get pictures of that. But you really got to be careful and not go out on it in different places, because you can go through. This is back in Grand Marais again. You can see the Sawtooth Mountains in the background. That plate ice just piles up and just gives you beautiful opportunities to get pictures. And then, of course, more ice is on the lake there now. And I just love the sound of the ice when the wind is pushing it on shore. It's just got that amazing sound to it that is really fun to be down there just listening, whether you're taking pictures or not. On some of the colder days, I was headed to Duluth on this one, 20 below zero. You got the sea smoke rising on the open water out there. That oarboat just happened to be coming. I saw it partway down the shore, and I was just hoping that it was gonna be going by the lighthouse when I got there. And sure enough, I wasn't there 5 minutes, and here it come around the corner. January and February is the best time to photograph the lighthouse, Split Rock Lighthouse. The moon rises just right up behind the cliff during those months. Um, when I was photographing this, I moved just because I saw that it was going to kind of come over the rock there. And so I moved to that spot. And this couple come walking around the corner of the light there, and they stood. And of course, this is like a 3-second exposure. So I was hoping they wouldn't move during that time, and they didn't. I mean, you couldn't have hired models to do a better job. And then you can move back a little bit and just catch that moon coming up in different spots. The whole shoreline is open for you to walk up and down, so you can get the moon in several different angles. Everything's still coming through okay, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I'm not hearing anything from people, I gotta make sure. And the moonrise in the Grand Marais Harbor, it's usually the March and April one that gets you to this point. And then in the fall again too. That the moon will come behind the lighthouse in Grand Marais. This one I shot last fall. And they got the dog races up here, the Gunflint Mail Run, and then John Beargrace race, which this one is. And boy, the one of the racers has these beautiful huskies that are. He's only won the race once because the dogs are a little bit bigger, so they're not quite as fast as those smaller ones. But they are just so beautiful to photograph. I just love to get out there when Blake is out there with those dogs. I mainly photograph wildlife when I have the opportunity. We have pine marten up here, which is really fun to pursue and photograph because they'll usually let you get fairly close to them, before they take off. This one I really like because the shadow on the snow from them too. He always looks, when they stand up on their hind feet, they always look like they have bell-bottom trousers on. I'm in the vehicle here, and he went up a pine tree and then slowly came down and gave me some really nice views. You can see those claws on a pine marten. They look very cute, but they are a vicious predator, and I've saw them go after squirrels and snowshoe hare, and they are fast.
Where do you find them?
Any place in the boreal forest. So up here along the Gunflint Trail, Sawbill Trail, even not too far out of town. I have them come by my house sometimes. I haven't seen one now for 2 years here, but there for about maybe 3 years ago, there was one that must have been nesting back here because he was coming by every once in a while by the bird feeder and would eat suet and stuff. You can really see the claws on this one. And if you go to Zachzim Bog, also they have a pair of pine marten that have been frequenting one of their bird feeding stations there. We've been seeing a lot of pictures of those pine marten. Bobcat. We got both bobcat and lynx up here. Bobcat you see more frequent. Lynx are pretty much the ghosts of the forest. You gotta spend a lot of time out in the woods to see a lynx. I've only saw one twice, I think. But bobcats you see quite often. And of course, all of them are after this guy, the snowshoe hare. This is kind of a funny story getting this photo. I decided one day just to go out and start following snowshoe hare tracks. It was after a fresh snow, and so I followed it quite a ways, and then I got up to this really big spruce tree that branches were all the way down to the ground, covered with snow, and so I walked. Tracks went under it, so I kind of walked around and looked. Nope, no tracks coming out. So I knew he was under there. So I took my snowshoes off and I just laid there for a little while, and then I slowly inched my way under the branches. And so this was taken under the tree with the branches on top of me. And he looked at me for a while, and then all of a sudden he just shook that hind foot at me and took off running out the other side of the tree. So when you see that back foot, you can definitely tell why they call him snowshoe hare. And of course, the owls, like I say, the implosion, I mean, eruption of the owls right now is just going on. When me and my wife were out last week, we saw 12 of these great grays, 4 boreals, and 1 saw-whet. So there's a lot of them around right now. There are some snowies coming down, but this one was up from a few years back. I haven't got any pictures of any snowies this year. This was actually at the Zag-Zim Bog that I took this one. And this little guy landed right on that little post that he's sitting on. That's next to my bird feeder. And I put that little branch post there 5 years ago, hoping that an owl would eventually land on it. And wouldn't you know it, that in 5 years, this little guy landed right on there, and I took this photo out of my bathroom window. So in the spring, boy, when you have that runoff, this is the Cascade River. It's just kind of completely out of its banks. The waterfalls is kind of to the right there, but it was just going over that whole island right there. Grand Portage, there, if it's a sunny day, you can get just the most beautiful rainbows, or mist bows is actually what they are there. But it's about 130-foot falls, so there's always enough mist there. But boy, is it hard to get photos because the way you stand there, if the wind is at all coming down, you're just covered in mist. So you just have to keep covering your camera and take it off and take a shot, clean the lens and try again. And it takes a few times, but eventually you get some good ones. This is a gooseberry river, so in the middle of summer lately, we've been having droughts, and it just dries up like this. There's just hardly anything coming down, and then you can just have one storm. It'll change from the previous one to this one, just overnight, and you can really get some roaring water coming down through there. 3 times I saw it where it's gone completely out of the banks and down the steps, and couple of times when I was working at Gooseberry, we had to close the trail because the water was just so high. A lot of places on the North Shore for scenery, landscape photography. This is the Beaver River. And of course, this is Tattagouche up at Palisade Head, looking over towards Shovel Point. I'm sure most of you have been up in that area. And the Yordis is the schooner that North House has here in Grand Marais that you can get rides on, and that's going out daily through the summer, hourly rides, pretty much regular. So I always have fun photographing the Yordis as it's going back and forth, the rocks out there in front of Grand Marais.
It is a picturesque
Pardon?
boat. It's a picturesque boat, for
It
sure.
is, yeah. Every time you're photographing, if there's kids walking around or something, they always say, "Oh, look at the pirate boats coming."
Mhm.
And sometimes you get that fog that just rolls in off the lake, when it's really low and just will cover up the shoreline and the lighthouse will stick out, just the split rock again. This is that picture you showed earlier. Um, one guy called me up one day. He wanted a copy of that picture that with the 100-foot waves that goes all the way up to the lighthouse. And of course, I had to explain to him that that wave is not that high. It's the waves way closer to me than the lighthouse is. But it was really neat the day I got this picture because normally you can't stand out on the rocks when the waves are coming in like that because the spray will just get you. And we had an appointment in two harbors, and I wanted to photograph the waves coming in before the appointment. Our time got away from us, and I couldn't get down there before the appointment. Well, then afterwards, after the appointment, I came back, and the wind, all of a sudden, when I got there, the wind reversed. And so the waves were still coming in big, but if you notice, like especially that middle wave right there, you can see that the wind is actually blowing the spray back out on the lake. So you could stand right next to the shoreline and take pictures, and it wasn't covering your camera with spray. It was amazing.
You have a lot of really interesting photos of the lighthouse. I mean, I think in the last 10 years, I've seen thousands of pictures of the lighthouse. And, this one and the one before with the moon, the couple standing in front
Oh
of the
yeah.
moon. I mean, that just blew me away.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've spent a lot of time down there photographing the lighthouse. So that's the thing with photography. It's never the same twice. And then of course the Boundary Waters canoe area. We're so close to that. That's one of my favorite places to go camp, is just to get out there into the Boundary Waters canoeing. It's just such a beautiful place to wake up in the morning and see the sunrise and the peacefulness and the loons calling and the timber wolves calling. And this photo has been published quite a bit, and I try to figure out, because the sun's kind of burned out a little bit, but I think what people really like about this picture is your eye goes automatically to that water dripping off the paddle. And I think that's what makes this more pleasing to people. So I shot quite a few pictures like that, and that's the only one I got where the water was dripping off. As one day we were going in and the lakes were just like glass. So my son was in the back, so he just kept paddling and kept me next to the side of this canoe, and I just made for some great shots. And of course, the Boundary Waters campsites, there's a lot of 5-star campsites out there. It's just a beautiful place to camp and take pictures. And if you're fortunate to be able to see the Northern Lights, that's just awesome. This one was just this last fall that I shot this one. You can see a fire going in that far corner over there. Campfire. This one's shooting straight up in the air. And it just blows my mind how many stars you can see when you stare into that picture. If you just look close and just keep looking, there's just more and more and more stars that all of a sudden keep coming out. This is that Cutfist Wayside with the aurora over Grand Marais.
What kind of camera settings do you use when you're shooting Aurora?
I try to shoot less than 30 seconds. I try to keep it down to maybe 15 or something like that. Um, because once you go beyond 30, it seems like you don't get the best shots. And then just keep the lens completely wide open, 2.8, and then just vary on the ISO, however high you can go, depending on how bright the aurora is. Like this one here, right here. I was down to just like 3-4 seconds on this one because the aurora was so bright. And some nights when it's really bright, you don't have to go very much at all. And usually I'll try to keep the ISO below 1,000. Um, sometimes you'll have to go higher than that. But and then this shot, it took me about 5 years to get this photo. There's an eagle's nest just north of Silver Bay. It might still be there. It's on private property, but I think I haven't been there for a while, but it might still be there. But I wanted to get a orbital behind that eagle's nest because when you're kind of up on a hill behind it, so you're almost level with the nest. And I tried many times, I just never worked out. And I finished up one of my classes. I was doing a photo workshop again for the fourth graders at Silver Bay, and I finished my class up, and I was just heading out, and I saw that orbital pull out of Silver Bay, and I thought, oh, this might be the time. And I got up there, and sure enough, you have to set up the tripod, and I had to set up the tripod as high as I could go. So I have a bigger tripod and extend it out so it's way over my head, and then you have to get it lined up right, and then use the cable release, the longer cable release, and sure enough, everything just lined up, and the eagle was sitting just right and just worked out. In the spring, rough grouse are out drumming, marking their territory, and it's so fun to get out and photograph the grouse. You got the red phase and the gray phase. This one has that red phase tail. And they'll drum like about every 3 minutes, and if you spend enough time out there with them, I mean, it takes me quite a few days working with the same grouse, but if you spend enough time out there, they will let you sit on the log with them. It's that's an amazing experience to sit on a log and feel that drumming, as that wind causes that implosion of air, in those wings. It's uh it's pretty exciting. Here he's letting me sit on the log with him here. Yeah, when they're all fluffed up like this, when a female comes around, boy, they just puff up, and them feathers are just gorgeous. So some of them have the black around, what's kind of bluish on the edge, but they have the black ruff. And then other ones have what they call chocolate or copper colored. And only about 3%, I think, of the rough grouse have that copper color. And I've only found 3, I think, in the time I've been photographing grouse with this copper color. But it's kind of a unique color. Last couple of years, I've been kind of messing around with hummingbirds in my flower garden, and I've always wanted to get them with the flowers completely out of focus in the background, So here I'm using, full telephoto on it, and the hummingbird feeder is close, right next to him there. And then I just set it up and get the focus in on the hummingbird feeder as close as I can and move it out there. And then when they come in, just still do the, shoot at the wide open aperture and just get those flowers. They're about 12 feet behind them. So they're just completely out of focus, and all you have is that color. So it's kind of fun. It's taken me a while to get the hang of it. And only twice have I been able to photograph the hummingbird nest. And I mean, you look at that nest and you can see why you can't find them. I mean, hummingbirds are so small, and they use the sticky saliva to put the lichens right on the nest. And the nest is made of spiderweb silk and other plant material. So it actually expands as the babies grow because of the spiderweb silk. And it's just it's just really neat when you do find one. Again, I had to take a ladder out in the woods. I got a ladder set up, and I'm on the top of the ladder with the camera and a tripod. And then I got a longer cable release so that I could sit back a little ways, and then when the adult come in, I could get pictures of them. The other one I love to photograph in the spring are the pileated woodpeckers when they're having their young. This is a male because it has that red mustache. The female just black there, and then the male has the entire crown is red also, and the female, the front part of it is black. But they'll nest. They make a new nest almost every year. They hardly ever use the same nest twice. And I'll set up and try to get photos, and here they're bringing in ant larvae that they collect and feed to the babies. And then babies just are screaming. I mean, they're just so hungry. It's so fun to spend time out there. The first time I was doing it, I wanted to see the first flight of one of the babies, and so I kept going there early in the morning or late in the evening and photographing them and watching them, and there was three that night when I was there, and then the next morning I come. And there's only one baby in the nest, so two of them flew. I don't think they would have done it after dark, but somehow they got out of there without me seeing them. And what happens is the adults quit feeding them so that they'll fly out of the nest. I mean, they feed them regularly until they get to the certain age that they know they can fly, and then they stop feeding them. They'll come up and pretend like they're feeding them, but they won't give them any food, and they get so hungry. And then that morning, there was one little female in the nest left, and the mom come flying around the corner and flew right up to her like I was giving her food, and then turned and took off. And that baby jumped out of the hole and flew right after the mom, just like it had flown for a long time. It knew exactly what to do. And it was really fun. And then they never go back to the nest again, and they learn how to find food on their own. If you keep feeding them, they never leave home. If you ever wondered how long a woodpecker's tongue is, it's pretty amazing. For him to be that long, it starts at the top of the nose, the end of the top beak there, and goes completely around the top of the skull, down the bottom of the skull, then up into the throat, and then out. And so that's how come it can stretch so far. And so that's how they get into those ant holes to get that larvae. And then you get that little hook on the front, and that's really sticky there, and it just grabs those ant larvae and pulls them back out. And like I mentioned earlier, that the pileateds, they always build a new nest. They just use it once, and they make homes for all kinds of other critters. And I went to these pileated nest here, and occupied by flying squirrels. And there was 3 holes in the same tree. They were all on top of each other. So there's 3 pileated nesting spots that they use, different years. And I kind of scratched like a predator at the bottom of the tree with a stick on both sides, and 12 flying squirrels came out of those 3 holes. And then they went back in again, and then I scratched again, and then these just kind of partially came out, but they just kind of like squeezed into the hole, so I was fortunate to be able to get that photo. And then you got owls that'll use the woodpecker holes also. So this is the saw-whet owl, which is the smallest one. And this is the baby. They look so much different than the adult. Here's the adult. There's the baby again. They just make a complete change and they should get in their feathers. And loons, I've spent so much time photographing loons. I'll just get out with the kayak or the canoe and spend time. And of course, you don't want to harass wildlife. You don't want to get too close, and you don't want to bother loons that aren't tolerant. And you gotta. What I usually go back to the same loon nests, and they get so used to you that they don't mind you being there at all. You can really actually bond with them. Um, but if you're going to a new nest or something, if I always look at the head, and if the head goes down, that loon doesn't want you anywhere close. But if the head stays up, like in this picture here, you can usually go close enough that you can use a telephoto lens, and you just have to watch the behavior of the loon so that you're not scaring it. This particular loon I spent several years with, and this year that I took this picture, you can see the baby with his head sticking out under the wing there. I went 8 straight days when I figured they were about ready to hatch, and I sat in front of the nest for about 3-4 hours each day for 8 days. And on the 8th day, the loon stood up, and there were 2 eggs under there, and it sat back down again and stood up again, and 1 egg was hatched and 1 wasn't, and went back down again, and an hour later it stood up and the second one was hatched. And I never did get a picture of both the babies together. Just one came out one side and went back in, the other one came out the other side. And then I left them alone, and I just went to a little island just not too far from them and just watched them for a while. And in 3 hours, those babies were off the nest in the water. And the next morning, I took quite a few pictures of the babies on the back. There's actually 1 baby under that wing on the other side there, and then 1 baby on top. Now, I don't know if I can't see it because of the thing on top is blocked as an insect, that a little bee or something that
I
mom.
can see it.
Oh, you can see it?
Yep.
Okay. And it's so funny that both the baby and the baby's kind of trying to imitate the mom here. So it's so fun to follow them around and when they're feeding, and as long as they're used to you, you're not harassing them at all. But sometimes it gets really scary because they will leave that baby, and I mean they switch off. One will go and then come back, and then the other one will go and come back. But sometimes they'll both go, and they'll leave that baby alone in the water for sometimes up to 30 minutes. And if there's an eagle around, I mean, that baby's toast. This one just happened to be swimming by, and I just happened to be clicking the shutter at the right time. Now, here's a story that is pretty amazing when you think about wildlife. But this is true. I have witnessed. There was 2 of us there. This was that loon that I spent five years with. I think it was about 5 years. Bonded pretty well with it. We came, a friend of mine was going with, and we took the canoe and we headed out to the nest, and we figured that the eggs were pretty close to hatching. And we get there, and I knew something was wrong. Because both loons were out in the lake a little ways away from the nest, and they were making these really weird puppy-like noises, which I hadn't heard before. It was like almost like a puppy whining kind of sound. And then we got a little bit closer, and I looked with the binoculars, and both eggs were smashed, and something had eaten them. So whether it was an otter, a mink, there's lots of predators that go after loon eggs, so could have been anything, but anyhow, it got both eggs. And both parents were out in front there. And what's in that one's mouth is half of that loon egg. It's kind of bent a little bit, so it kind of looks weird. It almost looks like a little frog kind of piece or something. But it's that's half the egg. And that loon, I don't know whether it was the male or the female. I can't remember. I didn't compare the size. They looked the same other than size. And the loon came swimming out to us with that egg, half of that egg. It went up on a nest, grabbed half of the egg, and came right out to us so close to the canoe, I couldn't even focus that close. I mean, it was right there within feet. And still making that whining kind of noises, and kind of looked at us, and then it let go of the egg in the water, and the egg floated there for a little bit, and then it took it and filled it with water, made sure that it would sink, and then dropped it or pushed it down, and then put its head in the water and watched, and East Bearskin, where we were on, it's such a clear lake, you could see a long ways down. And us and that loon watched that egg go all the way till it went out of sight down to the bottom. And then that loon just turned and swam back to the nest. And we looked at each other and we thought, man, did we just witness a loon funeral here? And it was, I'll never forget that day. And, David said the same thing, that is what an experience. Was the loon that bonded to us, that it wanted to tell us what happened, or was it just some freak thing that it did? But why did it come right up to the canoe? I'll never forget that day. Fox, I love going to the fox dens. There's quite a few up along the North Shore that you can photograph the babies. And these these almost look like little bear cubs or something, but these are cross fox. There was 2 red and 2 cross fox within this den. And the cross fox is still a red fox, it's just a different phase. And this is what it looks like when it gets a little bit older. Of course, robins are fun to photograph. My granddaughter is upset with me about this picture because me and her were both photographing this loon. We had the camera on a tripod, and I was taking some pictures, she was taking some pictures, and I had this one published in a couple of magazines with my name on it, and then I was showing it to her, and she says, "Poppy, that's the one I took." Because she was the one that got where all the heads were lined up straight. So it actually was her picture. And I put my name on it. So she reminds me of that a lot now. Had a cedar waxwing that was right in front of our house, so I could sit on our deck and photograph that one as the babies grew up. Lots of moose. Well, I shouldn't say lots of moose. There's less moose now than there was in the 80s, but you still see moose quite often. These young ones were up the Gunflint Trail People were seeing them so often this one year that they had put a moose crossing sign up there because they were worried somebody was going to hit them. And of course, when fall comes, the beautiful fall colors in the North Shore. Again, this is Palisade Head. The new bike trail is finished, from Grand Marais down to Cutface there with the new bridge over the Fall River. Beautiful, beautiful part of the trail. Oberg Mountain has some just gorgeous colors. Even just walking out amongst the pines, these are George Washington pines north of Grand Marais. So one of my favorite things to do in the fall, it took me a while to learn how to do this. I've been doing it for quite a few years now, and that's to go out and call moose. And I used a little fiberglass megaphone, and I make the call of the female, the cow moose, and boy, it works. I mean, once you get the hang of it, once you get it down right, those bull moose they come in. I think I'm up to maybe 40 moose now that I've called in. And this last year was just awesome. I had 12 encounters with bull moose this last fall. It was one of my best years. That one was in the Boundary Waters. This one, I called this one, and he just came. He was about a quarter mile away. He just came running down the hill straight at us, and drool was just dripping from his mouth when he got real close to us because he was looking for that female. And this was 2 years ago. I called this one in, and this one didn't have a very big rack. But it was a kind of a unique story with this one. I was with Travis Nowitzki. I'm sure a lot of you know Travis up in Grand Portage. He's known for his Northern Lights night shots. And me and him were out calling moose that morning, and we had, I think, encounters with 5 different moose that morning. But this one, we were calling in this one logged over area that had these green pines growing up in it, and nothing was coming, so we kind of gave up and we quit, and we were just kind of photographing spider webs and a few other things. And I was got a little ways away from Travis and was further into the middle of the opening, and just photographed these spider webs, and we were doing some videos and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, Travis, I hear him say something, but what he was saying is, moose, moose. And I hollered back to him because I didn't know what he was saying. I says, what are you talking about? And it didn't even phase that moose. And so I said, once I realized what he was saying, then I thought, well, we got to get where the trees are. I mean, because you can't be standing out in the open when a bull comes in. You got to have a path for retreat because they can come in mad, even a younger one like this one. And so we got closer to the trees and everything. And then I called a few more times, and he come around the corner, and we got some really nice pictures in the fog. But it was so funny that he was trying to get my attention, and I'm hollering back to him. But it worked out anyhow. This was one of the most encounters this fall. This was up the Gunflint Trail. Another one of the big ones that this one just came running down the snowmobile trail when I called. Again, the drool was just coming out of his mouth because he was looking for that cow. This one made me a little scared. This was this fall too. I mean, when their eyes are bulging out and they're looking at you like that, and you could kind of see the drool on the side of his mouth. He's a younger one. There was actually a bigger bull further back that was with the cow, and then both this younger one and the bigger one was with the cow, but the younger one was the only one that answered to me because the big bull, I mean, he was already with a cow. He wasn't interested, but this guy, he couldn't fight that big bull over the cow, so he all of a sudden decided, oh, another one's coming.
You can call them?
Pardon?
You can call to them and they come?
Yes, yes, I've called about over 40 of them now. So
What does
it's,
that sound like?
um, okay, I use a megaphone, so you know, a kind of a fiberglass megaphone that that's made in Alaska for moose hunting. But you make the sound with your mouth. So are you seeing me on the top, or are you just seeing the picture? You're just seeing the pictures, right?
No, I can see
No, we
you,
see you.
Paul.
Oh, you can see me. Okay, just a
Yep.
minute. I'm gonna grab the call. Okay, this is the megaphone that I use. It's a plastic fiberglass call, and what you do is you just put it up to your mouth, and it's kind of like the letter R or the letter I. It's a weird sound, but it's the sound that a cow moose makes when it's ready to mate, and the bulls definitely respond to it. So I'll call a couple of times. Oh, 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 oh. So that's the sound you make. And yeah, they come around and it's amazing. It's fun. It can be dangerous because when you make the cow sound, I mean, you can make the bull sound too, you know, but I don't do that because they come in mad then. I always make the cow sound because they come in looking for love then. And they're not, but this guy made me scared when his eyes bulged out like that and he got, but I wasn't too far from the vehicle, so because you either try to do it where there's big trees close by that you can get behind, or close to your vehicle. And yeah, they come in. Now,
How far away were you, generally? And
from
what?
this one here,
Yeah,
this one came to about 50 feet. So I'm about 50 feet from this one. Generally, they come in less than 100 yards, but most of the time they'll smell you or they'll sense something and they'll stop when they get, you know, less than 100 yards from you. They usually hesitate and they think, this just doesn't seem right, you know. So I mean, they're still close enough you can get good pictures of them. But I've only once had one attack me. Um, I had to get behind a birch tree. He came crashing through balsams that were like 2-inch diameter balsams, like they were grass. I mean, the trees just spread as he came running through with his antlers. And then he stood on a trail exactly where I had been standing. But at this time now, me and a friend of mine were behind this birch tree, and then we're not moving. And he he gave up then because he didn't, as long as we didn't move. But if we would have stayed on that trail, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But so you do have to have a path of retreat to make it work. So this time, this is just a scene. In those trees is a pack of 7 timber wolves, gray wolves. We didn't know that. We were calling moose. We started calling moose. And all of a sudden, we're about a mile from the boundary waters where we're calling here. And it's a very still morning. Fog was just disappearing. And it was just as calm as could be. And we hear what we thought was a loon answered after I called a few times, but we knew there was no lake over there, you know. So I thought, nah, that can't be right, and the loon should be gone by now. And then they answered us again. Then we realized it was wolves that were answering. And then every time I would make the cow sound, then the wolves would talk to each other, and they would howl back and forth to each other. And then they came around, and there was a white wolf I think was the dominant one, which there's not too many of the wolves in Minnesota have that white or blonde color to them. And they circled us, and they really thought I was a cow moose when they were after us. They circled us, and then the ones behind us were making noise, trying to drive us to the white wolf, which was in front of us, and a couple others. And but once the white wolf saw me, um, then they all disappeared. But at this point, we didn't know that there were 7 of them. We just knew that the wolves had surrounded us. We could hear them. They were howling. They were talking back and forth. But when they got the closest and actually were trying to drive us to the white wolf, they weren't making any sound other than making noise in the brush. And but then as soon as the white wolf saw us, then they just disappeared. They're just gone, and we didn't know how many there were. We thought, man, what an experience. Well, then the next morning, we're about 2 miles from where we had called this time, and we called again, and they came in again. This time they didn't come as close. We couldn't fool them quite as much the second day. But that white wolf was the dominant one and came in first again. And the only reason I got the pictures is because there was that old slash pile there, and they all climbed up on top of that slash pile. And well, I should say right before this, we were calling in a bull, and the bull was answering us, and he was coming closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, we look to the left, and all of a sudden, here we see the wolves coming through the brush from the other direction, and they're coming towards us, kind of halfway between us and that other bull. And then when they get to the spot, then they stop, and they're probably about 100 yards away. And when I took a pot, and then so you can see the white wolf, and then the other one there, and then here you can see them in 2 of them in the grass back or the brush back there behind, and so there was 6 of them in that group. And then there was one that came just a little bit behind, and that was this one. He came a little bit behind the rest of them. So that's how we knew that there was 7 that surrounded us that first day, because it was the same pack. And then once they saw us again, then they just took off towards where that other bull was, and the bull just disappeared. But but that was quite an experience. So that was published in quite a few different magazines. The International Wolf Center picked up that story in the Duluth News Tribune and Boundary Waters Journal and a few other ones, because it's just such a
Paul,
unique.
are there, this is Joe, are there any incidents of humans being attacked by the wolves up in your neck of the woods?
I have never heard of any. The only one I've ever heard of wolves attacking a person was up in Canada, and it was somebody that was feeding them. But that's the only time I've ever heard. Now that doesn't mean that I wasn't very nervous, you know. I mean, it's a pretty adrenaline pumping experience when you have wolves come close to you like that. I really wasn't concerned they were going to attack, but it still gets your adrenaline going. But yeah, I've never heard of anybody attacked by a wolf. Well, then last year I had another pack that came in when I was calling. Right now they're looking at the wolves that are on behind again. They did the same thing. They came in, they surrounded, they were gonna take me on, thinking I was a cow moose. And then once they realize that's not the case, then they disappear pretty quick. Um, this is kind of a unique picture. I was photographing beaver in a pond, and there wasn't very much open water there. The only open water was where the beaver had busted open some holes and everything, and a wood duck happened to land. And this was November, so the wood duck should have been down south, but he landed in there, and then he went over there and he fed right next to the beaver. So I just labeled this one just lunch with a friend. And this is the last photo. It's just the sunrise in Grand Marais with a couple of gulls flying in. As the sun was coming through the clouds, I was wanting to get some gulls in the picture, and sure enough, they came flying. You know, they're quite a bit closer to me than the lighthouse because you can tell they're a lot bigger. And and then they kept flying straight towards me, so I got some nice pictures of them flying with that sunrise. And then they landed right in front of me, and then there was a dead fish on the beach. So that's what they were after. But luckily they came straight on, so I got that picture. So, but that's it.
So Paul, this has been fabulous. Um, what struck me is
Part I
um,
didn't catch that.
not sure what's happening here. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you now.
Okay. What struck me with throughout this presentation was your enthusiasm after doing this since the 70s, still enthused about taking pictures and being in nature, struck by your patience and your knowledge. It was inspiring.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I definitely enjoy it. So I might have retired on my full-time job, but I won't ever retire out of photography as long as I can physically do it.
Mhm.
Well, I really enjoyed the stories too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences when you sit out in the woods for a long time, things happen.
Mhm.
Yes, great stories. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, Paul, you have control of the meeting. I don't think it's going to matter much if I just shut it down, but um,
Okay.
if you can stop sharing and maybe make me, oh, never mind. We'll just be done. Any other thoughts from anyone? Any questions?
I have
No,
an
just
off the cuff oddball comment or question. Do you ever run into mosquitoes when you're out there doing your photography, or do you avoid that season?
No, I run into mosquitoes a lot, especially when you're working with the spring wildlife with the nests, the young ones, working with the pileated woodpeckers, the fox dens. Yeah, a lot of times you just have to wear the bug shirt. That's the only way you can survive. The fall, about come August, there's very few bugs that you have to worry about out here in the boundary waters too. You know, if you camp in August or later, you don't have any bug problems at all. But boy, in the spring, May and June, they're thick. And the black flies when I'm working with the loons. I mean, the black flies are bugging me and they're bugging the loons as much as they're bugging me. So
Well,
yeah, you got to have a bug shirt.
well, thanks, Paul. This was just fabulous.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Do you want me to hit that stop share?
yes. Okay. Uh, you're still in charge. So if you just shut down, well, first of all, if there are any other questions from anybody,
Yeah, I have one quick question. You have recorded this presentation, haven't you, Paul?
I've
Um,
recorded it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I'd like to play it for my wife. It was so engaging and educational.
Yeah. In a day or two, I'll get that set out to everybody.
yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Let's be done. Everybody close down their windows and we can call it a night. It's been great. Thank you, Paul.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.